Warm welcome to our distinguished speakers, eminent guests, and my cohort from the media world. Well, thankfully, today the weather is much better. We have seen how the weather has played a spoil sport for the last few days, actually, few weeks or maybe months. And we know the impact rains can have on our traffic, on our movement. But thank you all for joining us today, this morning. Well, rise of Asian regionalism in the wake of Trump tariffs. That is our topic of discussion today. A topic which is not only being discussed by policymakers and thought leaders within India and the region, but the world over. The uncertainty related to tariffs and the rapid decline of multilateralism are most likely to result in carving out a new world order with new groupings and, of course, new trade blocs. We can see how protectionism is on the rise already, and countries are reshaping, rechalking their priorities amid this emerging global realignment. Now, before we get into our discussion, let me take a few minutes to give you a brief outline on the Secretariat. What is the Secretariat? What is the aim of the Secretariat? Well, we are a news portal. We are 3 years old now. At the Secretariat, part of the SML digital media, our focus is primarily on 3 pillars: bureaucracy, policy, economy/businesses, stakeholders, which of course include MSMEs, startups, industries, large and small. Well, we all know it is the bureaucracy which carves out policies, which in turn, of course, impacts businesses and thereby the economy. Our aim at the Secretariat is to provide a common platform, a meeting ground to these 3 crucial pillars. We need to know about our bureaucrats, about our civil service officers, the present, the past, and the future. They give shape to our policies. They've been giving shape to our policies. They've carved out the growth strategy, the growth path for India, and in the future, they'll continue to do so. Now, the policies, we focus on policies as well, like I said, decoding the policies, what are the loopholes, the challenges, and even the opportunities, the implications. What do they mean to the stakeholders? Well, finally, of course, the economy, because these are these policies which finally shape the economy, and of course the future course of the country. In today's context, these 3 pillars assume a much larger degree of significance as a nation, as we look to touch the developed nation status by 2047, the Viksit Bharat status by 2047. At the Secretariat, we do not deal with the politics of policies. And now, with the rapidly changing geopolitics and the geo-economic framework, it is imperative to look into the future of Asia, a continent which is home to over 50% of this world's population and a powerhouse of global growth. How will, therefore, the new tariff regime, the new tariff rules impact geopolitics and geoeconomic dynamics in the coming years, in the coming months? What does this mean for India? What does this mean for China, for Russia? What does it mean for the BRICS bloc, the SCO members? Are we going to see a revival of RIC? These are issues which will be monitored, which will be discussed at length in the coming months. So now, well, without wasting any more time, let's get straight into our discussion. May I request Dr. Jain Singh, former Chief Secretary, Gujarat, to take charge. So the stage is yours.
We have a very distinguished panel today. Mr. G.K. Pillai, who was Commerce Secretary earlier, Home Secretary, he has carved out key policy measures which have not only shaped India's economic growth, but also in terms of security. We have Mr. Rajiv Dogra, diplomat and former ambassador to Italy, Romania, and Pakistan, has worn several hats. He has also served a permanent representative to the UN, representing our country. Besides being an expert on foreign affairs and regularly writing and commenting on geopolitics, Ambassador Dogra is also author. Finally, we have Mr. Boris Greshno, first secretary at the Embassy of Russian Federation in India, and has been serving in the political section for the past 3 years. Mr. Greshno is a career diplomat with over a decade of professional experience. So we'll expect good comments from him also. Today, as it's our inaugural conversational conclave today, a few things have happened. When you take up today's newspaper, today's 28th, 27th, we had the 50% tariff imposed on India, highest along with that of Brazil, with whom the American president seems to have a personal issue. But India, what has happened to India and why it is there? Just this Sunday, Vice President Vance said on the NBC program Meet the Press that these were secondary tariffs on India to try to make it harder for the Russians to get rich from their oil economy. Boris is here, he may like to comment on that. And the same Vice President Vance, a few months back, he visited India. In Jaipur, he said, India is a great place to do business. This is very much a win-win partnership and certainly will be far in future. So things have changed. The tariffs are quite a blow to the country, indeed to the world. Many part from a multilateral trade policy, we have moved into bilateral or rather unilateral, one country having different terms with different players, different countries. What the MEA has said, our Ministry of Economic Affairs, Ministry of External Affairs, India has been targeted by the US and European Union for importing oil from Russia after the commencement of Ukraine conflict. In fact, India began importing from Russia because traditional supplies were diverted to Europe after the outbreak of conflicts. The US at that time particularly actively encouraged such imports for strengthening global economy. Now what happens when the multilateral trade regime, which has been doing quite a good work for a very long time, becomes one country trying to dictate terms as to how exactly it will be there with their businesses. See, the good number of academicians have started telling. For example, I just was reading New York Times and Substack, where James Bradford DeLong, economics professor in Berkeley, he says the rest of the world is large enough and diverse enough to reap most of the potential benefits from the globalized value chain production network without US participation. The US, a single rich country, is not. Again, Paul Krugman, a Nobel laureate economist, he says, the longer tariff persists, the greater the risk that firms and countries will learn to operate without the US market, eroding American influence and reducing the future gains available from eventual liberalization. What has happened? It has started happening globally. Canada is trying to develop immense trade links with Mexico. Canada is also trying to develop immense link with European Union. We have Mexico, Brazil trying to develop a solid link with China, exporting soybeans in a significant way. We have the Trans-Pacific Partnership working without US. So what is there? What is India doing? I mean, our leaders are not sitting just like that. Our Prime Minister will be attending the Shanghai Cooperation Organization meeting August 31st to 1st, where in the sidelines of the summit, PM is expected to hold bilateral meeting with several leaders attending the summit. Fareed Zakaria writes, whether it's a right thing for President Trump, and he in fact points out that this is the greatest blunder that USA is making in trying to alienate India. Prior to that, our Prime Minister will be visiting Japan also from August 29-30 and in the 15th India-Japan Annual Summit. So what is happening globally? Different countries are bypassing US and trying to develop trade links. So it is in that particular context that we have the summit, we have the meeting today, we have the conclave today on the rise of Asian regionalism in the wake of Trump tariffs, how the other countries of the world can do without the one hegemon or which one considers itself to the hegemon.
Thanks to the Secretariat for inviting me and for hosting this seminar. 2-3 key topics are before us. One is what happens to multilateralism? Where is the new supply chain? And where is the new global order coming? These are the three sort of broad features that I was asked to, in one sense, to speak about. Multilateralism, in one sense, is going to be in suspended animation, at least for the Trump's presidency. The WTO will sit there as a talking shop. And for most people who would say, look, if there's one country out of the 65 to 185 countries in the WTO, why can't you just expel the United States from the WTO and say the rest of us are functioning? That itself is a measure of what the WTO's rules and organization and constitution says. There is no provision to expel any country. Article 10 of the Marrakesh Agreement had a provision, which was a precursor to WTO, that if two-thirds of the members voted and 3/4 of the general body, you could amend the constitution in one sense of the WTO to say that, yes, we can introduce a provision to expel a country. But not anybody is willing to do this. And it's a measure of the power of the United States as a superpower and what it might do because of its control over so many levers of power, especially the financial powers, World Bank, IMF, and so on, that nobody is even talking about this. Neither the European Union, nor China, nor the Asian group, BRICS, anybody is talking of expelling the United States from the WTO. And everybody else, if you are in favor of multilateralism, and say that whenever the United States feels that multilateralism is good, they can join, but we expel you. And that's not likely to happen. And you see in this that one country just says, I'm going to impose tariffs on you. And the European Union says that we're willing to accept tariffs. Japan, you name it, all countries are one by one lying down. As I say, without even the feeblest attempt at any countermeasures. It's a reflection of the weakness of their economies. China possibly is the only exception, which is why China is one country against which hardly any tariffs have been put even now. And even just day before yesterday, you saw President Trump saying, oh, we love Chinese students and we want 600,000 of them to come to America because they're good for America. Because this is another superpower which has a dominant role in the economy and you cannot be ignored. Whereas the rest of us, because we are neither unified nor we are together, we are not able to present an adequate, shall I say, combined counter approach to what the United States is doing. It's basically today, calling it is a rogue nation. Because you can't say I'm a member of the WTO and then say that I won't listen to the rules. That's not the way things are done. So the entire rule-based economy which came in post-World War II is now, shall I say, in suspended animation, mainly because of one man. And that one man and his so-called ideology, you want to call it, Make America Great Again. People always say there are two things. One, people say, we always thought America was great, so where's it Make America Great Again? And the others who say that when was America ever great, and when is it ever going to be great? So you've got these two options before you. So we don't see any trend towards multilateralism coming. I've talked with a lot of colleagues, both in the WTO and others, etc. And there is no appetite for anybody in the WTO to take shall I say, even the initiative to say, let's all leave WTO and set up another organization, which is the other alternative that you have. Say WTO is dead, let's form another organization, world commercial organization or whatever it is, and we are all members, and if the Americans want to join, and we have a similar set which all the rules are already in place in the WTO, you can make it again. But at the moment, the situation has not come to a situation where any group or set of countries, whether the European Union, China, etc., are coming to that state again. So that's the first point which I wanted to make on what happens to multilateralism. I think you can take it as it's in suspended animation for the next 3.5 years of Trump's presidency. After that, we will know. Because Trump has no idea what tariff is, neither he has any knowledge of economics. I basically think that he gets up in the morning and something comes into his mind, he speaks it out, and he wants to be in the news. He must have, his great thing is that every day all world leaders, the first thing they watch is open X and say, what has Trump said? And so long as they are saying that, they are doing that, he is happy. I mean, that is his, I think his aim is that. The rest really doesn't matter. But we have a American leader like that, and we just have to live with it, because the American people have elected him the president, and therefore we'll have to live with that.
The world today, not just people here, seem to think of Trump before they go to sleep. They wake up wondering what Trump has done to the world this morning. So sometimes I feel that gatherings like ours are here to celebrate Trump or to bemoan the fact that he is there. Either way, I think 3.5 years further down the lane would be something that world has rarely seen. And I've read about all the historical figures, especially the Italian ones. I'm not specifically talking about Nero and Caligula. I don't want to put them in the same bracket as our present subject. But certainly we are passing through a very, very trying period and a very, very uncharted path. SCO and BRICS had also been mentioned by the Secretariat. So very briefly, I'll mention a couple of points, because there is a feeling sometimes that, okay, if we have to move away from USA, there's always SCO and BRICS, and that'll take care of all the problems that the membership of these two organizations have. To some extent, perhaps, to look at it positively, and to quote a recent example, China diverted its imports of soybean from USA to Brazil. And that has had a major negative effect on American producers of soybean, who otherwise used to send billions of dollars worth of soybean to China. So these small measures, these small actions by countries other than America, other than European countries, can have an effect in a snowballing way if it gathers steam. But will it gather steam? Because our interests are divergent, we are too far apart geographically, except in case of India and China and Russia, to really have that kind of a major impact on our economic patterns. I'll give you a small example. I go pretty often, besides other televisions, on if you're thinking of a partnership, if you're thinking of, regional organizations or trans-regional organizations like BRICS and SCO, then you should anticipate and you should come forward. To give you another example of how things are not so easy to achieve despite our wish, or despite our wishes, and despite our hopes. For example, we want to move away. I don't mean just India, but let's say the world wants to move away from dollar. And America has been fleecing the world on this dollar trade in terms of billions of dollars of profit every year for every little exchange that we do in trade denominated in dollars. Let's say that we want to trade only in rupees with Russia or China or Iran. Is that practical? As it is, Iran and Russia have hordes of rupees saved up in Indian banks because we are not exporting enough. So to think that we will be able to replace dollar and trade in rupees would need a lot of hard work by India certainly, and by others also who are hoping to have their currencies as alternate to dollar in terms of trade. Now that was SCO and BRICS. Let me come to the other order of the day, and that is the world order. Now this has become a buzzword that will change the world order. Good. If you want to change the world order, do it. But when did this thing called the world order come about? The fact is that world order came about only after the Second World War. Before that, you look back into the history, you might say, you mean there was no order in the world before? Yes, there was order. There was the order of the Roman Empire. There was the order of the British Empire. There was the order of colonial empires, or Genghis Khan, and so on, or Timur and people like that. But those orders were limited to the territories they had conquered. And those orders were the orders of the rule of the rod. And the moment those territories became independent or came under someone else's sovereignty or limits, that order vanished to be replaced by another order. Global order was a new term which came about because of the devastation of the Second World War and because of the fact that there was a realization that there were a number of countries which are becoming independent, and the world needed a system which will give a new vision. So there was a moralistic side to it, and there was an economic side to it, and there was a realistic side in terms of trying to avoid, as they said, never again, a major war like the World War. So it was self-interest. The second point was that America at that time counted for 50% of the world's GDP. So it could set the terms, it could make others agree to what it thought was best for the world to function under. And yet another element in favor of creating a new world order was the fact that America had a group of allies, mainly Europeans, who were totally in agreement with whatever America said. And the rest of us, whether in Africa, Latin America, or Asia, too new to the rules of the game to say, no, we have another viewpoint. We did not have a new viewpoint at that time because we were too busy getting used to the idea that we were not a colony. So we were quite happy when the West assured us, mainly America, that look, whatever we are doing is to your benefit. And we went along with that. But to be fair, I must say that under the circumstances, this was the best that could have happened to them.
The topic before us resonates deeply with the current geopolitical and economic realities. So what I'm doing here, I'm honored to offer the Russian perspective on the future of the regional cooperation in Asia. Using the privilege of the last speaker, I'd like to comment on a couple of points of the previous speakers. First, being that China is the only country that might not be fully leveraged in terms of tariffs. I would agree with that, but only partially, because I come from Russia, a country which operates in a destructive and very prejudiced environment for years now. So we have this sad fate to champion the number of tariffs and other, unlawful measures against us. So, and look at us. We are developing. We are still there. We have not fallen. We are growing 4%, above 4% yearly. So my thanks goes out to the organizers, because we are holding this discussion now as the tectonic shift in the global economy and power structure continues to redefine nature of international alliances. Inclusivity over exclusivity and sovereignty over subordination. At the same time, we're witnessing a parallel trend driven by external geopolitical pressure. So what I mean here is that against the backdrop of NATO-provoked and generated events in Ukraine, we are witnessing that the next act of drama might be pushed to Asia-Pacific. That's, how we call the region. That could turn this vast and peaceful region into a deeper epicenter of catastrophic developments. The scene for this evidentiality is prepared under the same pretext of defending democracy, rule-based order, and liberal values. And now we see the exclusive Western groupings and alliances spawning under the Indo-Pacific banner. I'm not talking about Quad per se. Yeah, I'm mostly talking about Indo-Pacific 4 with Japan, South Korea, Australia, and New Zealand. A reconfigured Quad. I'm not sure if they call it Quad 3.0 or whatever else, with the Philippines replacing India in some points. And of course, the AUKUS alliance that's now preparing to bring in new members. One more touch to this canvas would be added with the proposed concept of indivisibility of security in Euro-Atlantic and Indo-Pacific region. This thesis is vigorously supported by some of the countries, including Japan, South Korea, New Zealand, and it sort of justifies the alliance's infiltration into the region and, establishing the bloc-centric structures right after that. At the same time, simultaneously, we see that unilateral sanctions, like the ones imposed against Russia, tariffs imposed against many countries, including India, and investment restrictions, they have been weaponized as a tool of economic coercion. We see the attempt to redesign global supply chains in a manner that privileges certain countries or closed clubs over open cooperation. In response to these shifts, Russia, among other like-minded countries of the global majority or global south, we choose a different path, one rooted in mutual benefit and indivisible security. We believe that no country's stability should come at the expense of another one's, be it militarily or economically. Our foreign policy is driven not by momentary alignments, but long-term strategic interests shared across the Eurasian space, if we are talking about Asian regionalism. What we advocate is avoid bloc building, but to try and strive the inclusive regionalism based on dialogue, mutual respect, and consensual mechanisms. And in this vision, BRICS as a global platform and Shanghai Cooperation Organization as a regional one, they play a certain role here and have a lot to offer.
So, well, we've had an extremely interesting, insightful session. On behalf of the Secretariat and its entire team, I would like to thank Mr. Pillai, Ambassador Dogra. Thank you, sir, for agreeing to moderate this session. It was absolutely a pleasure and an honor to host all of you. So thank you, gentlemen. And before we close, if I could request my CEO, my Chief Business Strategist, Prashant, to please come and hand over the mementos to our esteemed guests as a gesture of gratitude. Ambassador Dogra, thank you very much, sir, for joining us today. It was a pleasure to host you. Thank you so much. Mr. Pillai, thank you so much, sir, for coming. Thank you so much, sir, for spending time with us. And of course, Dr. J.N. Singh, who's always been supportive and advising us in all spheres of the Secretariat growth. Thank you so much. And with that, we come to the close of this session. Before we wind up and open for lunch, I would like to request all of you to please download the Secretariat app. There is a section within the Secretariat, it's called the Bureau Track. You'll get a complete list of all bureaucrats, IS officers, IPS officers. Please download that app. Thank you so much. See you soon. Thank you all. Thank you very much.